In this video, we're going to move over to the right-hand side of the UI, which actually contains an entire group of tools that you'll be using as you work with Hammer. We're not going to give this area any one name, though. We'll just kind of talk about all the tools that are included inside of it.
The right-hand toolbar section, or whatever.
Yes.
So, first, let's move this toolbar down here. That shows that we can move the toolbar around, and now we got more real estate space, which is good.
Sure, our screen resolution is so low that Hammer kind of lines itself up in a way that takes up a little more room than it needs to.
So, first I'm going to go ahead and show the selection toolbar. I'm going to create an object, and I'm going to duplicate it, and then I am going to move out here. So now these are two different groups.
Two different objects.
That's two different objects. Let's go ahead and group them together, and right now, if we select one, we select the entire group.
Okay.
If we go down to objects, it's going to select the individual groups, but if one of the primes are tied together with an entity, we will also select that.
That's right. When you create entities inside of Hammer, you can link them or tie them to an existing piece of geometry. Say, for example, you have a room that you have built out of a primitive. You can take the lights that are inside of it and link those lights to the parts of the geometry that form the room. So if you move the room, all of the lights will move with it. If you have your selection method set to objects and you select that piece of geometry, all entities tied to it, in this case the lights, would come right along with your selection.
Exactly. And if you go to solids, it's the equivalent of turning on ignore groups, and you'll select the individual pieces of geometry.
And alternative to using objects, if you have solids on and you select a piece of geometry, it will not grab the entities that are linked to that geometry.
Exactly. Then moving down, there's the texture group or toolbar menu where you can select what kind of texture group you want. There's materials by default. You can make your own. It shows your current texture and the previous textures you have used.
Wow.
You can browse through the texture menu, which we're going to cover in the texturing video. You can replace a texture. So say we don't want this texture anymore, we can replace it with another texture. And all the places...
Hey, you just click that at 900 miles an hour.
Oh, sorry.
Click back on replace. I just want to make sure everybody sees it. So click back on replace. And we don't have to really do it again, but we can just show them. On the left, you have find this texture, and on the right, replace it with that texture.
You can do not replace textures, so you can just mark them, stuff like that.
Very cool.
Then moving down, we have the Vis group menu. Well, let's say we ungroup these two and put this in a Vis group. We've shown this before. Press OK. It's now in a Vis group. We take this piece of geometry and put it in another group. And now we can choose to show all of the Vis groups, so it overrides the settings.
Right. Notice it's temporary, too. It grays out the entire Vis groups area because what it's doing right now is just showing everything.
We can edit different Vis groups, so how they show up into the viewport, so we can make it all. Let's make it green or yellow. I'm colorblind. Red, and it'll show up differently in the viewport when we select it.
Gotcha.
There's also the mark option, so we can take geo and press mark, and it'll mark the piece of geometry in the different Vis groups.
So kind of like select all pieces of geometry or entities within this Vis group.
Then moving down, we have the move selected to world to entity, which is basically used when we tie an object to an entity or when we want to break the connection.
Right. The move selected can be a little bit misleading. This is actually a bit like linking over inside of 3ds Max. If you want to link something to the world, which technically means it's not really linked to anything, or if you want to link it to a piece of geometry.
That's right. Then this particular space, if we go and choose the entity, it'll change to entities, and there's different entities we can choose. And
so this is where you choose what you want to create.
A weapon, we can put that in the world if we want to. We can also choose geometry and select different primes. So primitives.
It's hard
like
to say,
a spike, a sphere.
A sphere.
Sphere.
Yeah, I'm probably going to end up having to say the word sphere for Rap whenever he has to say it. But that's okay.
I can talk, honestly. So let's say you have a cylinder. You can choose how many faces it got.
Oh, nice.
Stuff like that, and then go ahead and create it.
Very nice.
There's also prefabs, and What is prefab, Zach?
Well, a prefab is essentially another level that you're going, or another map that you're going to import into your map. You can think of it like a collection of geometry and various entities that form a single object. An example would be maybe you could have a prefab of an office cubicle, and this office cubicle would have your little partition walls, it would have your desk, your computer, your telephone, the whole thing. You could put that into a prefab, and then bring that prefab into your map as many times as you want to insert as many cubicles as you need for your office.
And we have different prefabs by default. There's a ladder, and there's the staircase and stuff like that.
Cool.
And we're going to take a look at that later.
All right. So that's going to take care of this right-hand toolbar, if you will. So thanks a lot.